Hello, curling fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Broom Brothers, the official podcast of the curling group and the Grand Slam of curling. It has been a huge week in the sport, and there is no one I would rather be beside recapping it. I'm John Cullen, and my partner in crime, my Broom brother in arms, Robbie Doherty, is here. What's up, Robbie?
John, what a week. What a week. Not often I get to kind of sit in my living room, the recliner with the boys. Well, sorry, my sons. And just watch curling. It was amazing. It was like the best week. I wanted it to go to Sunday, not because I was cheering for any specific team or anything, but I just wanted it to keep going. It was fantastic.
No, totally. I agree with you. And it was a massive week in curling. And I think we can both agree that really, I would say the biggest news of the last 4 years came out of this week. And that is that the Broom Brothers have a new title sponsor, and it is Goldline.
Choice of champions.
The choice of champions, Goldline. Welcome on board to the Broom Brothers. We are super stoked to have Goldline on board. As you said, Robbie, they are the choice of champions, and this is a first for the Broom Brothers. Oh, I'm going to do an unboxing on the show. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'm currently, Goldline sent me a package. They sent me a package in the mail to sort of, I guess it's just like a gift for now being our title sponsor. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to see what it is. But yeah, I'm very excited. We're very excited to welcome Goldline on board. Of course, they are the world's premier manufacturer of curling products, and not just the choice of champions, Robbie, but also great for curlers of any skill level. They got basically everything you need: shoes, brooms, pants, gloves, whatever you need. They have it. Head on over to goldlinecurling.com. Lots of great products. And I heard there's a big holiday coming up you might want to buy a present for. I don't know. But
is there?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've heard. Yeah.
Right. New Year's. Right.
Okay. Well, I will say I love the box right away. It looks like it's shoes, Robbie.
Oh boy.
Look at this box.
The bolt.
The Goldline momentum bolts.
The box kicks ass.
The box does actually kick ass. You should watch this episode on YouTube. The box is really, really awesome.
That's like Power Rangers meets Victory.
It's got a Power Rangers feel to it for sure. It's got the like morphin time, the little thing they hold. So I did need new curling shoes. I did tell the folks at Goldline that I needed some, and it looks like they've come through. Okay, I've got a broom head in here too. That's nice.
Nice.
A Goldline Impact broom head. I think they sent me a broom too. They sent me a box suspiciously long. So I'm guessing there's a broom in that, not a sniper rifle or something like that. And they come in these like nice little shoe bags. Ooh,
oh, sweet.
Look at that.
Those are nice. Those are
the
really
momentum
nice.
bolts. I did tell them I liked the color. I kind of liked this sort of like bluey, purpley kind of color. I like to stand out on the ice. So thank you to Goldline for these momentum bolts. This is they're very light, I have to say. Incredibly light shoes. That's the gripper shoe there. I got a little toe dip. Can't wait to try them out on the ice. So thank you to Goldline for sending those to me. If you want to snag some Goldline products for the holiday season, head on over to goldlinecurling.com, and we are thrilled to have them as our new title sponsor here on Broom Brothers. All right, Robbie, without any further delay, the Canadian Olympic trials happened this past week in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Lots going on both sides of the ledger. I think we kind of talked about it before we got on the show, that we were going to kind of run through every team on both sides of the draw, talk about what we saw, how it all shook out. And we started with the women last week. So let's start with the men. Brad Jacobs is your official representative at the 2026 Olympics. Brad Jacobs, Mark Kennedy, Brett Gallant, Ben Hebert, Coach Paul Webster. They were 6-1 in the round robin. They were 2-0 in the finals against Matt Dunstone, I'll throw it over to you. Your thoughts on the week that was for Team Jacobs.
Not much you can say. Like, they had a loss early on in the week and they bounced back and just like they never looked back ever since. And that team, they're so strong. They make so many shots. They do the little things well. They judge, they sweep well, all that stuff. But you could really see the element of experience paying off for them. All 4 players have won the trials before. They've been to the Olympics. They know what it takes to wear that maple leaf, but also what it takes to win the trials to get there. And that's a huge advantage. And most of my discussion this week was with a lot of my friends who are not curlers, and they were asking me a lot of questions, especially when it came down to the final 2 between them and Dunstone. And I basically said, I feel like, and maybe this doesn't make sense, but I feel like both teams at their best, it's hard to pick a winner. Like, both are so good. Hammer would probably decide the game. But I feel like if both teams were at 90, Jacobs is going to win more times, just because that experience pays off. They know how to miss and when to miss. And everything was just according to their plan. You could see throughout the week, as those playoffs got closer, they get into that final weekend, they had 0 goose eggs. Like, if they were going to miss, they were getting something out of every rock. They were all firing on the same cylinder. It was a very strong performance. I don't want to say dominating, because both games were pretty close, but they just looked rock solid, so well coached. You could tell they knew how to react in any situation. So if they were up so many, if they were down 1, whatever, they were just locked in mentally. And basically, I don't want to say they didn't miss, but as I said earlier, they got something out of every shot, it seemed like. And I think that experience was a huge thing for them, as I said, and also just straight up shot making, a tremendous performance from them.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of it there. I think throughout the week, to me, and like you said, it wasn't some kind of dominating performance, just Canada's very good right now. The depth on the men's side is very strong. We kind of said it in our preview. We thought there was 5 teams that could reasonably have a chance at winning this event going in. And then Kevin Cooey also played really well. So it was kind of like 6 teams almost. You felt like at times during the week really looked good enough to have a chance to win the event. And it just reminded me, I thought back, and it's maybe because he ended up winning, but I remember in 2022, or I guess 2021, the trials leading into 2022, Ben Hebert then was playing with Kevin Cooey, and they came 3rd, and they had lost the semifinal there. And he said, to win the Olympic trials, you have to be playing your best. You have to have your best game. And he said, don't get me wrong, we were really good this week, but we didn't have our best game this week. And he felt like Brad Gushue, and at that time, Team Jacobs, just had a better game than them. And that was what it felt like to me this week. It was like a lot of teams did bring a very good game to this trials, but just watching it the whole time, it felt to me like Team Jacobs they were just that cut above. They just had that little bit extra that, propelled them through. And yeah, that's what it takes to win an Olympic trials. Ben even said back then, he's like, sometimes you can get enough luck or things can go your way. You can win a Brier without your best game, but you can't win a trials without your best game. And yeah, it just felt like they had their best game more often than not, and probably saved their best game for game 2 of the finals. They were electric in that game. Cups especially made some unbelievable shots. So did Mark Kennedy, made a few to get them out of trouble. And we kind of talked about that on the preview show. We thought they were the prohibitive favorite going in, and they punched their ticket to Cortina.
Cups is also, I find, just so fun to watch, especially in those big games, because they show clips of when they won the 2013 trials to go to Sochi, and they'd make a shot and all 4 of them would just be like, flexing and fist pumping and all that and yelling. And now in 2025, he still has that excitement, you can tell inside, but it just comes out in a totally different way. I don't want to say more mature, but just perhaps a more relaxed, sort of focused version. And I just found Brad in particular, his mental toughness all the way through was so impressive. Like, even that thin double he made, I think, it was his last shot in the second game of the finals, to basically seal the deal. It looked like Dunstone was going to force an extra. And he just never changed his facial expressions. He never looked like he was nervous about it. He just threw a dart, and that was the story for Brad Jacobs personally. And the whole team played tremendous as well. I'm not saying that, but he was just fun to watch this week. He's just a very impressive athlete. And it's not often, like you and I, we don't get to watch much curling on TV, especially this time of the year. If the trials weren't on this year, I mean, we have the points bet, but that's pretty much it. When you're at every slam, I mean, you're commentating, but you can't sit back and really take it all in and, kind of watch. And I don't know. I think that team is looking really strong going into Cortina.
Yeah, agreed. And, one thing I also wanted to bring up before we move on is that we talked about it at the time, and obviously, make no mistake, one of the most cutthroat moves in curling history happened halfway through this quad when Mark and Brett and Ben decided to move on from Brendan Botcher and bring on Brad Jacobs. It kind of, seemed like it sort of sunk Team Carruthers. They never really reached the levels. They had a good Briar last year, but as far as on tour, they skipped the pre-trials. Like, it kind of sunk them. Brendan found a good home with Brad Gushue, who we'll get to in a minute, but they basically said, we don't know if we could win the Olympic trials with Brendan, and whether or not they could have, I mean, that's up for debate. They were number 3 in the world when they made the switch. But regardless, it's impossible now to sit here and say that move didn't pay off. And there's a lot of teams that wouldn't make that move, that would want to spare a person's feelings or whatever. Would just say, look, we're number 3 in the world. Why would we make a change? And those 3, along with Coach Paul Webster, identified a couple years ago that we want to go back to the Olympics. If we want to do that, we got to make this switch. And now that they're going to the Olympics, it's pretty hard to argue with it. Again, brutal move, one that we pretty much have never seen before in Canada, but one that paid off. And so you kind of have to hand it to them. They kind of knew what they needed, and here they are. So very impressive. And as you said, they'll be a great rep for us in Cortina. Now, Matt Dunstone, starting to become the always a bridesmaid, never a bride situation now. He's lost 2 Briar finals, loses both of the trials finals games here, has a 4-3 round robin, loses that last game in the round robin to Mike McEwen, is looking like maybe he won't even get in. He needs Brad Jacobs to beat Brad Gushue to get into the playoffs, gets a little help. Even said they took their brooms out of the arena. They packed up and they were ready to leave Halifax. And then they find their way to the finals. Some words on Team Dunstone.
I thought they were very impressive. What I think's fun to watch about that team is the front end and the back end are just in such different parts of their career. Like, you can see Matt and Colton, they want it so bad. They want to win that Briar more than anything. They want to go to the Olympics more than anything. They want to win every Grand Slam more than anything. And EJ and Ryan, they've already accomplished all of those. And it's just funny to see them communicate. And I think it works well together. Like, EJ and Ryan, I find, are a very calming influence in a way, because it's not like they're super relaxed people on the ice. I mean, maybe Ryan a little bit. But EJ is certainly intense and has a lot of contagious energy and positive energy. That's not meant to be a knock in the least. But I really liked Matt's response to the media, where he just kind of said, I wanted it so bad, but the reality is it was the top 2 teams in the country going at it. Dunstone had beat Jacobs the 3 games before that coming into this, and Jacobs got them 3 in a row here this week. And he just said, that's the game. And I mean, Matt's what, 30?
30, yep, just turned 30.
So's Colton.
Yeah.
I know this is the last thing he wants to hear right now, but he's got so many great years ahead of him. He's such a talented player. He's probably, in my opinion, the best kind of up-and-coming skip that we have in the nation right now. I don't want to say up-and-coming because Friggy's won Grand Slams. He's, lost a Briar final, he lost the trials final. He's number 2 in the world, I believe.
Yep.
Like, so up and coming's the wrong word, but at the age of 30 and he's playing the way he's playing, he's going to have an outrageous career in the next decade. And, big congrats to that team for battling. Like you said, it wasn't all hunky dory. They got off to a strong start. They looked like they were rolling. And then you said, like, they kind of found, I don't want to say a slump, but they took that last loss at the end of the week to McEwen, got some help, and both games really it was tied up coming home, I believe, in the first game, and or did that go in extra?
No, it was the second game. It was tied up coming home.
Yeah.
And then the first game I think Jacobs ran them out of rocks, right? I can't remember. I've watched so many games this week.
It was close.
Yeah, it was 9-8. Jacobs needed the 2. Jacobs needed 2 and 10.
Yeah, exactly. So both games, if you look at the line score, they could have went either way. And
Dunny popped that 4 on Jacobs in that game.
That was wild. I woke my 5-month-old son Jack up, who's sitting on my knee, because watching the game when he made that shot there's a few misses before, but I just went, whoa. Yeah, I think it was like to go up 1 when he was down 3. So anyway, but I like that team. I doubtful you'd see them stay together. Maybe. I know nothing. I have zero gossip. I'm not trying to start any gossip, but it'll be just fun to see, especially where Matt and Colton goes. And maybe they will stay together. Sorry, I just want to clarify that. EJ and Ryan, just great guys. Such a great front end. They work so well together. And unfortunately, someone had to be second. And I guess, as you said earlier, it just shows you the depth in our country right now. Yeah,
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said there. Team changes will have lots of time to get into.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them stay together. I also wouldn't be surprised to see them break up. I think it's really more just dependent on if EJ and Ryan want to go another quad. EJ's he's well past the back 9 of his career. He's probably at the back 3 of his career now. He's rounding he's just got off the 15th green. He's got a few holes left, and Ryan is similar. And obviously they both have families, and Ryan's got a young family now, just had a new baby not that long ago. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that Matt and Colton would probably want to keep the band together. I guess it would just depend on whether they're going to retire or not. It's also, I just don't know what direction they would go in if the Harndens do decide to leave, or if they decide to part ways with them. The names I was thinking of there, like, could you see the Horgans ending up there? Maybe Jake at second and Tanner at lead. I don't know. That would be the only thing that makes sense to me, but we'll have lots of time to get into team changes over the next few weeks. If we start talking team changes here, we're going to be here all day. So, I agree. I think really what stuck out to me, we've seen Matt in the past, and you sort of touched on this already, but just to add to that, like, when Matt loses and when he wins, like, we know, you know how he's feeling at all times. He's not a stoic man. When he's happy, you can tell he's happy. And when he's sad, you can tell he's sad. But it seemed to me there was a bit of a change this week. Like, it felt like the Briar final losses felt like the sky was falling. It had like a Chicken Little kind of, the sky is falling. My life is over. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I thought this time around, the perspective sounded different. He was using words like gratitude, and we felt lucky to even be in the playoffs, and I wanted to enjoy the crowd while I was still here, and blah, blah, blah. It just felt like there was just that little bit more maturity. It felt like this time around, as far as, like you said, recognizing, hey, look, like, Brad Jacobs is the second best team in Canada. We're only separated by X number of points. Anything could have happened here. We could have been the ones on top of the podium. They happened to be the ones who were. So yeah, I thought Matt handled it super well. As you said, very talented back end with him and Colton. I think no question those two will stay together. We'll see where the rest of it goes. But it was really fun to watch them this week. And like you said, Matt will be very sick of hearing that his time is coming, but it really does feel like his time is coming. Okay, the semifinal loser, team Mike McEwen, they went 5-2 in the round robin. They had a 4-game winning streak heading into the playoffs. They were one of the 5 teams that we had sort of said before might be able to make the finals or make the playoffs, but I think they would have been maybe the 5th team out of those 5 coming in, as far as, do you think they have a chance? But they really looked good this week. Just ran into a very good Matt Dunstone in the semifinal. Your thoughts on Team McEwen?
Yeah, I thought they looked sharp. Mike is, I know, I just heard him in a couple interviews before the trials saying how much he would love to win this event before his career, is over. Wasn't to be this week, but I thought they had a lot to be proud of. They had some adversity through the week. They didn't get off to the best start. They certainly had some rough ends, some rough games towards the start of the week. Kind of flew under the radar, but they picked it up. And I found they were one of those teams we didn't get to see a lot of on the coverage. That was just my personal observation. Maybe it was some draws I had to miss.
No, I think they were. I think they were only featured once.
Yeah, so I found there was a couple to them and Epping. I found it very hard to track them because we'd see the updates, but that was about it. On the men's side, it was
a bit of the Brad Gushue show this week, which makes sense. It's his final trials, but I think that prevented maybe seeing McEwen and Epping a little more.
Yeah, I thought Colton Flash is such a big part of that team, in my opinion. If Colton's hot, they're going to win a lot of games, and he's certainly stepped up at the end of the week. It wasn't quite enough to get to the final and challenge for that Olympic spot, but I agree with what you said. I would have put them probably at the number 5 in that pack of 5 that we said that could win it, and they finished third in that group. Third place, a lot to be proud about. The front end, I don't think gets enough credit, Dan and Kevin. It'd be interesting to see what happens with a lot of those players going forward. I know we're not talking team changes, but I think that's probably where I kind of saw that team was semifinals. Not to say they couldn't win on any given day, but realistically, that was probably, it wasn't my official prediction because I had to throw Gushue in there. But if it wasn't Gushue, it would have been.
That was their peak. Their ceiling was going to be making the semifinal, probably.
In my opinion, yeah.
And I mean, Mike was playing well enough, and we've seen Mike get hot at a trials before and almost won in 2017. Specifically because of that. And I think really the story of this for Team McEwen is Mike saying in his post-game interviews, maybe he could go another 4, that he felt good enough in this event. He had knee surgery over the summer. He's just starting to feel like himself again. And I think, if Mike came into this event and he went 2-5 or 1-6, he's 45. It felt like that could have been, or at least this is me analyzing what Mike was saying. I don't have any insider info on this, but feels like to me anyway, if Mike had kind of fell on his face at this event, he might have said to himself, okay, you know what? I've had a good run. I've tried my best and that's it. I'm going to ride off into the sunset. But them going 5-2, making the semifinals, they beat Dunstone in the round robin. I feel like that is the takeaway for me with Team McEwen is maybe we will see Mike next year when we might not have, depending on his performance here. Okay, the other team at 4-3, Brad Gushue, they had a chance to slide into the playoffs if Brad had made his triple on his last one against Brad Jacobs. They would have been into the semifinal, but they missed it, gave Matt Dunstone new life. And Brad Gushue, his final trials ends up just on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and that probably won't sit well with Brad. We all know how competitive he is and how much that means to him. But at the same time, he announced it was his final year. I think that team, they didn't win. Obviously, they didn't reach their goals, but they should be proud of their week. They made that change, at the start of last season, bringing in a new player, Brennan Botcher, who was a lifetime skip. He was thrown second. It's a lot of changes. They didn't have the success they wanted, but you know what? They played some great games at the trials, in my opinion. Mark Nichols had some unbelievable games. He was probably the standout player. Yeah, he was the standout player for me on that team. But I honestly think that triple was kind of like the story of the week for Brad Gushue, like an inch on either side, and it's probably made. And I woke my son Jack up on that shot as well. Now that I think about it, I let it know. Whoa!
Yeah,
like how the Rock could get through there is mind blowing.
I know it was. I mean, I do think the triple was a little harder than everyone was giving it credit for.
Yes.
It kind of felt like, oh well, if Brad had just made that, and it wasn't like it was a dialed up triple. Like, was it there for 2? Yes, I think there was, I'm not going to say it was easy for 2, but it was certainly easier for 2.
Yeah. Yes.
Needed 3 for the win. And it was close, but that was a really tricky shot, I thought. And I thought that Brad was good this week. It does kind of feel like it feels like the right time when you watch them play this week for Brad. Like, Brad is a guy, he's not going to want to play while like tarnishing his legacy or whatever. He doesn't want the sport to retire him. He wants to retire from the sport. And this week, you said it, they were just kind of on the wrong side of the inch. And Brad Gushue has spent the last decade in particular being on the right side of the inch and finding his way to be on the right side of the inch. And when you watched him this week, it did just seem to me like the 3 playoff teams were ahead of them. And those are the 3 teams they lost to in the round robin. They lost to Jacobs, Dunstone, and McEwen. And that seemed like a fair result to me. It seemed like they were just a little bit behind those playoff teams. You and I know Brad from watching him over the years. That's just not a level of play that's acceptable to Brad. So in some ways, watching it, you kind of felt like, okay, he is making the right decision. It's probably time for him to step away. So don't get me wrong, played very, very well. Is there a world where he could have made the playoffs? Absolutely. But I think the same thing as Mike McEwen. I think his ceiling was probably losing the semifinal. I think even if he finds a way into the semifinal, he probably loses. Well, I don't know. He's playing Mike McEwen, so maybe he would have made it into the final, but he wasn't going to win this week. And I think where they ended up was just fine. Okay, we're getting into the teams that had losing records now, so we'll go through them a little bit quicker. We'll start with Team Epping. They were 3-4 in the round robin. They did beat Mike McEwen early in the week, but they started 1-4. Never really felt like it was their week. Quick words on John Epping.
Oh, kind of like what I said about McEwen. It seems like they flew under the radar. Like we did. I didn't feel like I saw much of them other than updates. And like you said, the 1-4 start, you just kind of park them out of your mind. But that's a really solid team. It'll be interesting to see what happens there going forward. But I had them in my sort of top 5 as well going into the event. They were capable of making a playoff run, I think. I didn't see them ever winning the event. So I think they'll be a little bit disappointed with the 3-4 record, but a lot of talent on that team. They just couldn't seem to put it together at the right time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'm the same as you. Ton of respect for John, obviously, but it's a young team, even though they were 6th in the world coming into this event. The knock on John is similar to the knock on Mike McEwen. So always had a hard time winning the big one. And even last year, they got really hot, got into the Brier, missed the playoffs there. I mean, that was an unfortunate way to miss the playoffs, just with all the convoluted seeding or whatever. It wasn't like they necessarily deserved to miss the playoffs, but that has just seemed to be the way it's gone for John. Is, he gets to these big Canadian events and then just can't seem to find a way to put it together. And just didn't seem like their week right from the start. Team Cooey, on the other hand, they also went 3-4, but it somehow felt like a bit of a success story. Looked like Kudog was pulling out of his old bag of tricks. They were the only team to beat Brad Jacobs this week, beating them in the very first game of the round robin. And they controlled their own destiny. They were 3-2 heading into the final day of play, but then they lost to Mike McEwen and then lost to Rylan Kleider in the last game. So 3-4, Kevin Cooey kind of seemed like that was their ceiling also. Like they did kind of overperform in some ways, it felt.
No, absolutely. And Kevin is obviously, we talked about EJ being on the 15th green. I think Kevin is certainly nearing that clubhouse. And that's not meant to be mean or taking a shot at him. Just
Kevin's in the bunker beside 18, I think.
Yeah, he's not, it's part of every athlete's career. There comes a time when, you get to that age. But I just, what I mean by that was Kevin, he really looked like his old self out there. And not even in the sense that making shots or throwing it hard, but he didn't seem timid. He looked like he wanted to be there. He looked like the old Kevin, had his game face on, made some absolute pistols. He was definitely the standout player on that team for me. And you could just see it's kind of like a Rocky movie where, we haven't heard from him in a while, but when that, bell rings, they want it so bad, just as much as they ever have. And Kevin, he went down, I think 3-4 record, but he went down swinging, if that makes sense. And he was close on a lot of the big shots he didn't make either. He was I've always found Kevin Koe just a fun player to watch. Any team he plays on, they're going to make the game interesting. And there was a lot of that. They were close on time as well, a couple times.
He's always close on time. He always has lots of rocks in play. There's always a chance he's going to make some hero shot to win. It did feel a little bit like Koe of old this week. And we can take a quick word here. One thing, and this was before I even knew that he was going to end up being named the 5th for Team Jacobs, but one thing I thought, obviously I've known Tyler Tardy for a very long time. I started playing against him in Bonspiels when he was 13, 14 years old. I've gotten to know his family over the years. I mean, obviously I played his brother Jordan too, and Anita and Paul, his parents, have become friends over the years. And so I've always paid attention to Tyler's career. And at the start of this quad, him joining up with Kevin Koe really felt like, wow, he's breaking into the men's game. This is such a good thing for him. And obviously the quad has not gone the way that Tyler or anyone on Team Koe would have wanted. And there was part of me that worried that was maybe going to affect Tyler's stock heading into all these team changes. But I thought he was also extremely good this week. Yep. They moved him back to 3rd. They had Aaron Sluchinski at 3rd last year, and then they made the switch coming into this year. And it really felt like Tyler just had a great event. And so, like I said, even before figuring out that he was, that he was maybe not going to be, before finding out he was going to be the 5th, I was just kind of like, happy for him that he was maybe getting on the radar again, just by virtue of having a good trials. And then, he got named the 5th for Team Jacobs. So very happy for him. Very exciting. He's obviously was with them at the Worlds and the Pan Continental. It seems like there's a fit there. He's obviously a guy that can play up and down the lineup, played 2nd last year, played 3rd this year. Feels like a good choice. I'm happy for him. And it seems like a good mix with Team Jacobs.
Oh, couldn't agree more. He's a very versatile player. He sweeps well. He makes a lot of shots. He's a great teammate. He can play anywhere in the lineup if they needed him. He's a great 5th player for that team, in my opinion, especially at a competition like the Olympics. And sure, he's never been there as an athlete or performed in them before, but he strikes me as someone who Tyler kind of moves at one level, at Tyler level. He doesn't get too worked up, doesn't get too too discouraged or angry or anything. So I think he'll bring a lot to that team. And it's funny because Saturday night, I was just thinking to myself, I wonder who they will take. And Tardy was obviously the first name in my head that I thought of.
Yeah, I thought it would be EJ or Tardy. Those were the two that I thought.
Yeah, and they do have a left-hander on the team in Kennedy.
Yeah.
So someone to, unless he's in for Mark, there's at least they can kind of get a read on a left-hander. Throwing a random left-hander on a team of all right-handers is a little bit tougher, in my opinion. Happy for Tyler. Great guy. Love his TikToks, by the way.
Yeah. His Instagram and TikTok are great. And I'm going to throw this out too, Robbie.
Yeah.
I know we're trying not to talk about team changes,
yeah.
but I wonder if, because we already have heard Ben say in his post-game interview, maybe Mark and I are going to have to keep playing. We were trying to quit, but now, you go to the Olympics, that brings eyeballs, that brings sponsorship. I wonder if Tyler's, if they do keep playing, if Ben and Mark don't retire, I almost wonder if Tyler stays on the team as a 5th. It would allow Ben and Mark to maybe play a little bit less next year. He fills in at a few events. And then if Ben or Mark or both ride off into the sunset after next season, then Tyler moves on to that squad with Brad and Brett. Yeah. That's no insider info, but I wonder if that's where all of this is going. Okay. Couple quick words on the final 2 men's teams. Ryland Kleider 2-5 in the round robin, but they beat John Epping. They beat Kevin Koe. They took Brad Jacobs to an extra end in the second game when he was already 0-1. Quick thought on Kleider.
I feel like I'm going to have a very similar response to both these teams, but just both young, don't have a lot of experience in their pocket, but I thought they both looked like they belonged in that trials field. Ryland himself made a lot of shots. sometimes it was a little bit too late in the game when the scoreboard wasn't in their favor, but no, that's a big thing at their age. And how old is Team Kleider? 24, 25?
Yeah.
Neighborhood,
yeah,
26?
they're in that zone. Yeah. Maybe a touch older, but yeah.
So much time ahead of them. We've seen them in a few slams now. They just seem like they're on the climb, and it just feels like, what's the yodeling game on Price is Right? Like when they're going up the mountain, it just feels like yeah, that one. And it just feels like there's going to be that time now. Like it seems like they've just been going up, stopping, going up, stopping, going up, stopping. But there's going to be a moment here in the next couple seasons where it just doesn't stop, and they improve a lot. So I don't know. Great showing, fun to watch. Didn't see a lot of them on broadcast either, but a great team, a bright future for sure. And I can just jump, or sorry, you go ahead, John, on Team Kleider.
Just one quick thing on Team Kleider. Yeah. I just, before the season, Brad Gushue, when he announced his retirement, he did a presser, a conference call. And I asked him about playing in the slams and what the slams did for his career. And he said, well, the slams was where we learned, he's like, the slams is where we learned how to be a team. Like we went there and we got our ass kicked. Then we learned how to lose. Then we learned how to win. Then we learned how to consistently win, and that those kind of feel like the steps. And I feel like for Kleider, as you said, they're getting a little more regularly into slams. They were in the Briar last year, but it felt to me like they had not yet learned how to lose. They were still like in the ass kicking phase. They're going to slams. They're not winning a lot. And that's no shade to them. That's just what teams have to go through. That's just how it is. And especially right now with how competitive the men's game is. But this was the first event, I have to say, where it felt to me like they were learning how to lose. Like they took Jacobs to an extra end. They got wins over good teams in Kevin Cooey and John Epping, teams ranked ahead of them in the world. Like John Epping is ranked well ahead of them in the world. So this was the first time I really saw a Team Kleider that was learning how to lose. They were in a lot of close games. They were giving teams trouble. And that's a really good sign. So that was kind of my takeaway from this one. And then finally, Jordan McDonald, youngest skip ever to appear at the trials. Elias Humanicki, his second, the youngest player to ever appear at the trials. They went 1-6, but they did beat Kleider, so they got that one win. I'll give you a quick thought on McDonald, and then we'll get on to the women's here.
Yeah, pretty similar to my thoughts on Kleider. They were young, they were inexperienced. I don't think they were there to win the event. They were going to try their best, obviously, but I think mission accomplished for them. That round the horn early on in the week from Jordan was pretty impressive. That kind of set the tone for them. And they certainly got a lot of eyeballs on them. A lot of friends, in Halifax, who were taking in the event were saying that it was, they kind of became that sort of Cinderella story on the men's side. They gained a lot of fans. They should be proud. As I said, the trials is friggin' hard. Like a lot of people who casual curling fans, they don't understand how much pressure is on you in those Olympic trials. It's a 4-year journey to get there. The event starts, you do anything to win, but so would every other team. It's intense. It's a lot of pressure. And I thought they played well. And what the youngest player, 21, I think.
Yeah.
I remember making the joke to my wife that, geez, like less than a year ago, he couldn't buy a beer in the US. And now here he is trying to play down for the, Canadian curling team. So, major props. I can't wait to watch that team in the future, them and Kleider, to be honest. I think they're going to have some pretty solid duels, but I'm sure we'll see them quite a bit as the slam season goes on as well. And be fun to watch them in the next quad as well.
Yep. Love watching them. Jordan, very, very talented. Made a lot of great shots this week. Looking forward to seeing more from them. Okay, just before we get to breaking down the women's side, and obviously we're already 40 minutes into this show, so we are going deep this week, but the trials only happen once every 4 years, so strap in, baby. But this podcast is brought to you by Goldline Curling. Head on over to goldlinecurling.com for all your curling needs, whether you're a pro player, a recreational player, just getting into the game. Brooms, shoes, gloves, pants, it's all there. And also, if you are admiring the Team Canada gear this week, That is all Goldline Curling. So if you head on over to goldlinecurling.com, they have the jackets that Team Canada will be wearing in Milano Cortina available for purchase. They also have hoodies, sweaters, t-shirts with that beautiful maple leaf logo that was designed by Shelby Gagnon, an Indigenous artist. That is all there on goldlinecurling.com. So if you want to be, the fan that supports Canada in Milano Cortina, there's tons and tons of awesome stuff available on goldlinecurling.com. Check it out. Grab some stuff for Christmas, for the holidays, or just for yourself, because you know what? You deserve it. Okay, on to the women's side. Perhaps no surprise in the result, maybe a little bit of surprise in the way that they got there, but world number one, two-time defending champion, Rachel Homan seals the deal, a 2-0 finals win over Christina Black. Your thoughts on Rachel Homan and the Homan Empire going back to the Olympics?
Dominating. I mean, I know they took a loss in the round robin to Skrlik, but they were just the best team out there by far. I don't think it even looked close, as a lot of people can expect or would expect going into the event. But I think that loss, I remember thinking this to myself, it sucks at the time to lose a game, especially in the trials. But if you look at the line scores for the next 2 or 3 games, I think it kind of pissed them off a bit, and they took it out on their opponents. And going back to what I said earlier about my chat groups with my other friends who are not really curlers, they were asking me what I thought going into the final. I think this was before game 2 against Black. And they said, what do you expect? And I said, this was Homan yesterday. And I sent a picture of the T-Rex from Toy Story. And I said, here's what I expect today. And I sent the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, like biting the Jeep. And that's what it was. I mean, the greatest team in the world right now. I know it's premature, but just arguably the greatest curling team in history with their win-loss record, the way they play, man, oh man. And the thing that I was thinking about this morning is they won that event pretty handily. And I don't think they peaked. Like we talked about for so long on the show and just around the curling world, how hard it is to try and peak for the trials and then peak again for the Olympics. I don't think they peaked at the trials. Like, I don't think we saw the strongest version of Team Homan. We saw some amazing ends, and they still won it comfortably. That's a scary thought for all the other teams going to the Olympics, in my opinion. Congrats to them. The hard work that they put into it, it just pays off, and nothing less than flawless, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I'm wearing my Homan Empire shirt in honor of the fine curling they put together in Halifax. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's hard to know how much of a factor the ice was. It was tricky all week.
Yeah,
it seemed like
fair.
It was changing every draw with the humidity and the frost. And yeah, it was interesting, because I think this is the first time I can ever remember a team being so good where there started to be discourse about whether or not the trials should even exist.
Yep.
Right. Because I've never heard that before. All I've ever heard about the trials is this is the best week in curling, may the best team win, and we'll be happy with whoever we send. And it seemed like, this time around, everybody was like, why aren't we just sending Team Homan? They're so much better than everyone else. I mean, we laid that all out in the preview. I mean, you want to talk about even the disparity between the two finalists, between Rachel Homan and Christina Black. I mean, it's not even close as far as world rankings is concerned. And that's no shade to Christina Black. That's just a matter of fact. Rachel Homan has 500.4 total ranking points. Christina Black has 120.
Yep.
So Rachel Homan is 380 ranking points ahead of Christina Black. They're number one in the world. Black is 27. Like, these are the gaps we're talking about. And so Homan had to deal with the pressure of, you've had the 2 best seasons ever. How are you going to cap that? You have this Olympic specter looming over you. You've been there twice. You haven't made the playoffs either time. And then you have all this additional pressure of people in Canada saying, like, why are we even doing the trials? Like, what happens if Homan doesn't win? And so massive amount of pressure. And you and I said in the preview, was like, what would it take for Rachel Homan to lose this? And it was like, well, she either has to like completely mentally lose it, like that the Olympics just is some kind of weird bugaboo for her and she just falls apart, or the ice will have to be tricky or bad.
Which it was.
And it was one of those two things did happen, and she managed to make her way through it. And I think that is just a testament to them. It's also a testament to the best of three final, because I'm watching that game Friday. That semifinal on Friday might have been the worst the ice was all week.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Allowed Christina Black to stay in that game. Christina had a shot to win, didn't make it, but that was the exact test case where you go, oh my
best
God,
of three.
Like best of three is good.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't, right, I mean, you look at it, it was weird. Like Friday, that game one, the ice was probably the worst it had been all week. Rachel wins 5-4. Saturday, it was probably the best the ice had been all week. Rachel wins 12-3.
Yeah.
So it's just, that to me was exactly the reason why you would have a best of three final. I mean, I know, and Rachel won, so good for her. She ended up winning that game, but that was a winnable game for Christina Black. And that was the exact scenario that you wanted to avoid if you were Curling Canada. So that was good to see. It felt like everybody liked the best of three. I did too. And that was exactly the reason why you do it right there. Speaking of Christina Black, we can move on to her because we've said so many things about Rachel Homan over the years. It speaks for itself. But Team Black, similar to Team Dunstone, could have been eliminated. Needed Caitlin Laws to make an 8-foot run back on her last one against Kayla Skurlik to force a tie between the three teams at 4-3. She got into the playoffs by virtue of LSD. But yeah, then faced Carrie Anderson in the semis. They had never beat Carrie Anderson before, got their first ever win over Anderson in that semifinal. They started 0-2. Managed to work their way through this week. They were also dealing with the loss of Colleen Jones, and it was just a crazy week for Team Black. Try and make sense of it for me, Robbie.
Well, I think Team Homan, they won the right to represent Canada at the Olympics, but Team Black won the hearts of curling fans across Canada, and rightfully so. I've known these girls for a long, long time. I said this, and they are what you'd think they are. But what you see on TV is them. They are passionate. They are high energy. They love the sport, and they give it everything they have, and they're not scared. I find a lot of times in Atlantic Canada, we have some good curling teams, but then they go, out west or to Ontario or wherever, and they play these teams, and it's just like they're timid. They're almost just happy to be there sometimes. I'm guilty of that. I'm from the Maritimes, and I've just never found that with them. They always just give it everything they have, and they're rock solid. I called it, I think, on our last episode, John. I said, you watch, that crowd is going to get behind Black. They're scrappy. They're going to feed off that crowd, and they're going to put on a show. I think I had them coming in third.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. So they outperformed my prediction, but they made those top three. And so I wasn't surprised. I saw Christina for the first time. I've known her before this, but I really saw her curl for the first time at the 2012 mixed in Montreal. And I remember saying to Robert Campbell that this girl, Christina can play. She can friggin' play. And she put the work in since then. So they were just fun to watch. I thought they brought especially the Atlantic Canadian curling community together in a tough time, losing when we lost Colleen Jones. They were certainly inspirational. If I was a young junior, watching that team, seeing where they are and how far it got them, it was just a great story. And I liked her comments at the end. We were kind of laughing about this before we went to air, but she kind of admitted that they weren't the best team and Rachel deserved to win. But I also liked how she said, we're going to go and try and win the Scotties. And for us, that's I don't want to say it's a bold statement, but it's an honest statement, and it's a fair one. You just made the trials finals. You know what? Go win the friggin' Scotties.
Well, and they know Rachel's not going to be in the Scotties, right? So that makes they feel like, hey, we proved we can beat Carrie Anderson. And you would have thought if you knew that Rachel wasn't going to be in the Scotties, you'd say Carrie Anderson was the favorite. and they just beat her to get into the trials final. And so, yeah, why wouldn't you say that? Why wouldn't you say that's your goal?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we had Christina on this show last year. It was one of our most popular episodes. That was after she came third at last year's Scotties, because I think people started to fall in love with her at last year's Scotties. Just her demeanor, the way she plays. She's always so positive, never down on herself, never down on her team. And yeah, it was just, she was a total delight to watch. Like, if you could have anyone face Team Homan in the final from a just like good feelings, good vibes perspective, that's the team you would have wanted. I think Carrie Anderson might have given Rachel a little bit more of a run than Christina did. Although, yeah, as we said, she had a shot for the win in the first game. Felt to me like their strategy let them down a little bit. I felt like, they're very good shot makers, but there were a few times where I really questioned their strategy and their shot calling. And even especially in that 10th end in the first game, I thought they called a timeout, and I thought they made the wrong call coming out of that timeout. And so I'm sure that's something they'll look at as they continue to get better. I think, they're a team that has mostly stayed in Atlantic Canada. They'll play a little bit in Ontario, a little bit in Quebec, but they're not really going out west. They're not playing those better teams until the last couple of years, where they've gotten themselves in a position where they're playing in slams. I think they've played 3 now or 4 in the last couple of years. And that, they're in the points bet, they're in the Scotties, whatever. They're starting to play more and more of these high pressure games. So I think that will automatically improve the strategy, but it just felt like that's where there was a little bit of a gap. I mean, obviously there's a shot making gap too. Rachel's the best team in the world, but that to me felt like they let themselves down just a little bit from the strategy side of things. But yeah, how could you not love Christina and her whole team? Just a joy to watch. Attitude was amazing. I tweeted this. Christina saying, look, we wanted to win, but Rachel is the best team and we want Canada to win gold. And so it's great that Rachel is going because she'll have a better chance of winning gold than us. Like, who says that? What athlete says that? No one says that. So really, really loved that week for them. It was so fun to watch them play. Looking forward to seeing them in the Scotties. And as you said, I love that they're vocalizing it. I love that they're saying, we want to go win this fucking thing. I mean, Christina wouldn't say it like that, but that's exactly what they're.
But at the same time, she also, like, you're right. I agree with you 100%. But she also leveled up from what you'd expect her to say. Normally, well, we're going to see what happens in the Scotties and hopefully make a run. No, she said we're going to try and go win the Scotties, which I think that's her version of we're going to go win the fucking thing.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're probably right. So yeah, it was really great. If you haven't listened to our interview with Christina Black from last year, it was fantastic. And like you said, they're as good of people as you would expect off the ice. I've gotten to know them a little bit over the last few years, and they're a joy. So very happy for them. For Team Anderson, maybe a little different of a story. Didn't quite meet their expectations. They went 6-1 in the round robin. They played Homan in the last game of the round robin. If they had won that, they would have got a bye to the final. But they go 6-0, and then they lose to Rachel Homan. They lose to Christina Black, and within a 24-hour time period, they're out of the event. What did you make of Team Anderson's week?
They got off to a great start. I thought they looked really sharp early.
Agreed.
I thought early on, I was like, this could be a battle at the end of the week with her and Homan. And because Homan wasn't, like I said earlier, like, it's not like she was just making everything from start to finish. Like, there were some kinks in the armor, especially early on, and Anderson was very strong. But the one thing I found about Anderson, there's 2 things. I didn't like Anderson's draw. Like, it seemed like it was a 1-horse race, but then that next kind of team that could catch Homan is like the obvious thought would be Anderson. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. They were number 2 in the field. But that's a tough draw. It's like you play everyone else, you got to win those games, you get on a roll, and then boom, you get Homan in the last round robin game, and so you take that loss, first time you've lost all week, and then boom, as you said, you're back, in under 28 hours, you're back on the ice for a semifinal, a sudden death semifinal. And that, you have a rough game, not what you'd envisioned, and boom, you're done. Like, I just found, and there's nothing you can do about it. I like the round robin. I just found it was almost like they just couldn't regroup after that loss to Homan in the round robin. And, it certainly wasn't their best outing in the semifinals. That team has a lot of talent. Carly Burgess, in my opinion, is going to be one of the best players in the next decade at some point. Carrie Anderson is arguably the best shot maker, or at least in the discussion, top 3 shot makers, in my opinion, in women's curling. Val is Val Sweeting. She's won so much. She's been around, and Shannon Burchard as well, as her resume speaks for itself. Like, that's a good curling team. And they just didn't look like they were at their best in the semifinals. And you add, 9,000 people cheering, not, I don't say cheering against you, but cheering for the opposition. It's just a recipe for a Cinderella story, unfortunately, on the other side. And that's how it played out.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, it's exactly what you said too, right? Let's say Anderson plays Homan the 3rd game of the week or whatever. Maybe you beat Homan, you get her a little bit early in the event. But even if you don't, you get a chance to get on a little bit of a heater. You have a 3 or 4 game winning streak going into the playoffs instead of having a 1 game losing streak. And it's right. A game where you go, if we win this, we're not only in the finals, we have the hammer every game in the finals. Like, we're feeling great. And so, yeah, like you said, it's not their fault, but that was a bit of a tougher draw, and especially too because Homan loses to Skrlik, so obviously that starts the panic online. Oh my God, how could they lose to Skrlik? And Skrlik's one of the lower ranked teams in the field, and this is disaster. And it was like, well, no, it's not. If they beat Carrie if they win out, they will have a bye to the final. So whatever, it didn't. Them losing to Skrlik actually didn't really matter, whereas Anderson losing to Homan mattered a lot. And then they had to recover, try to get themselves back against Team Black. And yeah, it just felt like a team that was demoralized by the loss to Homan. Ice was tricky again in that semifinal. Christina Black had her draw weight in that semi. Carrie Anderson did not. And that was really the difference. It felt like Christina could put it wherever she wanted. She really embraced the ice. And you and I have both been in that scenario when the ice is tricky and you miss a couple draws early. You just feel like I'm never gonna figure out this ice, and you feel like you're fighting it the whole game. That's what it felt like to me. So yeah, Carrie will be the prohibitive favorite going into the Scotties. Will be interesting to see how they rebound from this. Obviously, a lot of disappointment over the last few years, and I hate to bring it up, but it is just going to be the biggest what if in curling. For the next however many years. It feels like we're going to be talking about it for a decade from now, but Carrie wins 4 Scotties in a row. She won a Scotties that this Rachel Homan lineup, as currently constituted, was in. I mean, we're thinking of them as the best team of all time. Carrie won a Scotties that team was in. And then obviously the Brianne Harris situation happens. And it just has felt like Carrie's never been the same. They've been good and they've had some decent results, but they just have not been the same since that happened. And with how good Rachel is and how good Carrie was with that 4-person lineup with Val, Shannon, and Brianne, and this no shade to Carly or Kristen Karwacki, obviously both great players, but we're just going to be left wondering forever if that could have been like a really titanic battle for that Olympic spot. Anderson never felt like they fully recovered from that. And we're just going to be asking that question forever, which is unfortunate. And I feel bad for them. And I do think it's going to lead to a lineup rejig for Anderson. I think, Carrie and Val seem like it's been 8 years. That's enough. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest what if in the sport, maybe ever. Maybe if I write Curling Rocks 2 in 2040, I'll have an entire chapter about that what if. But yeah, hard not to think about that as this quadrennial wraps up for Carrie Anderson. Okay, now let's move on to the non-playoff teams. Caitlin Laws, they were in that 3-way tie at 4-3. Their only 3 losses were to the 3 playoff teams. So they had those losses to Homan, Black, Anderson, and her last shot made the Cinderella story for Christina Black possible. Caitlin had like an 8-foot run back with her last one against Skrlik on tricky ice, made it. That got Christina into the playoffs. Your thoughts on Caitlin Laws' week?
Yeah, well, as a maritime curling, fan, I think I joined a lot of other people when I was excited when Caitlin made that shot, because obviously, we cheer for our own here in the Maritimes. We
Of
just do.
course.
We always will. And I don't know. Caitlin's a great player. She really is, and she's got so much experience. I just found that team all lovely, lovely people, all great players, but there was just no point in this quadrennial where they just went on any kind of a tear. Seems like they were always around the middle, winning some games, losing some games, but they never kind of put that push on, if that makes sense. 4-3, that's kind of where I had them in my head. I don't think I saw them in my playoff scenario. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I mean, as I said, I'm not just trying to BS my way through that. I really think that they're all four of them, especially at their position, are just really, really good. And Caitlin, she's nowhere near retirement age. I know she does have 2 young children, so that can play into things. So I think we're going to see a lot more of them. There's not much I can really say more than that. It just kind of was what it was for me. That team, good team. They never scratched that surface of greatness. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, this wasn't the mix. I mean, I think it's easy to say.
And they weren't fighting. It's not like a negative thing. It was just.
Oh yeah, of course, putting a lot of work in, but yeah, this never felt like the mix, and it goes to show really that this was a quad where lots of teams made changes in the middle of the quad, more than we've ever seen before, and Laws's team was a team that every year we were like, well, are they going to break up? They might break up. It just doesn't seem to be working. Are they going to break up? And they didn't. They stayed together for the whole quad. They're all very good friends, and that all was fine. But it just goes to show, like you said, they never had that marquee event. Maybe the best event they had was Charlottetown last year, where they made the semifinals. Caitlin was quite pregnant with her daughter Ella at the time, and she was playing really good. And that to me was maybe the closest that they looked to okay, maybe they can break through. But you're right. It wasn't the mix. I have to wonder if Caitlin's done with skipping. I think that would be the first question that would come to the forefront of my mind. Just again, we thought it was natural. She was so good at third for so long and was a great skip in juniors. No one was questioning it when it happened. Everyone went, yep, this makes total sense. Caitlin's ready to move up to skip. She's made 3 Olympics in a row. This is the move that makes sense, but just never had that really just killer instinct at skip that you need at this level. And so that's the question for me is, does she find a way to play third for someone? Is that someone Carrie Anderson? I don't know.
I was just going to say that.
I don't know. But to me, when you're thinking about, we got to try to beat this Rachel Homan team, maybe that's the pairing that you think about as getting it done. But anyway, no shade to them. That's just talking frankly. And I don't think they would disagree with us. Just never felt like it came together for them in this quad. But as you said, 4 great players. They'll have a great chance to make impact on teams next quad. We'll see how that shakes out. Okay, the other team in that 4-3 log jam, and maybe this was a little bit more of a surprise, Selena Sturmey coming out of the pre-trials, going 4-3. They beat Team Black in the round robin. They had a very tight game with Carrie Anderson as well until Carrie got 4 in the 9th end to beat them. But they were there all week, gave teams very good games. Your thoughts on Selena Sturmey?
Well, kind of like Epping and McEwen on the men's side, I didn't see much of Sturmey all week. I think they were featured once. I forget. Was it against Homan?
I can't remember, but they were featured once, I think.
Yeah, and I did catch most of that game. And you know what? They're a good team. They've been in a few slams. I've seen them play a few times. I didn't really know what to expect from them. Good team. I think, what was it? Did they give up 4 in the 9th against Anderson?
Yeah, exactly.
So that could have been another win for them, but not to be. I mean, there's just not much. I just didn't see a lot of their games, to be totally honest. But you know what? Good team. I don't think that's the lineup that's, going to turn heads if they're going to stick together. They have some work to do if they're going to stick together, is what I'm saying. If they want to challenge Homan kind of for that top spot or even that top 2 or 3 spot in Canada on the world stage. But, Selena's good. Do they come from the U of A program, John?
Yep.
Yeah.
Some of them do. Yeah. Yeah.
And I find a lot of those teams, you
Des
can kind of tell.
But Des doesn't, but the other 3 were all U of A.
Yeah, I find a lot of those teams, like they're all great teams and they're so technically sound and it's like they all kind of maneuver the same. I'm sure it's from the coaching that they receive. But yeah, bright future for that team. Team Sturmey. Selena's a great skip in my opinion. They just weren't quite there yet.
Yeah, agreed. Don't have much to add. I agree with you. Team Skurlik, Kayla Skurlik, they went 2-5 in the round robin, but of course had that headline grabbing win over Rachel Homan, the only team to beat Rachel Homan this week and the first Canadian team to beat Rachel Homan in over a year. Which is crazy. And they also lost 1-point games to Black, Anderson, and Brown. So there is an alternate universe where this week went a little different for them, but unfortunately they end at 2-5.
I think Kayla herself is a shooter. I've always thought of her as just a really good shooter, especially hitting. Like she's a hitting fiend. They had some great moments. Like they beat Rachel Homan, greatest team arguably of all time, but definitely the best team in the world right now. So they should be proud of that. I don't think they were ever going to win the trials. As you said, they had a lot more games where things could have went the other way, but that's the trials for you. You need 10 great ends or you're probably not going to win.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's consistency has been the issue for them. And I completely agree with you. I think of the younger skips in the country right now, Kayla is pacing them for me. I think she's the best kind of in that age 25 range. And there's lots of great names in that mix. Selena Sturmey she's a little older, but kind of around that age. And then we've got some coming up right now: Serena Gray Withers, Taylor Reese Hansen, who we might see get some Scotties wildcard berths. Like there's some good young skips. Corinne Brown's now pushing 30, but just in that kind of younger group of skips, I like Kayla the best. I think her ceiling is high, and I think she has a ways to go to reach it. But I think she's going to get there. Practices a lot, plays a lot, has the right attitude. It'll just be interesting to see how she structures a team next quad to maybe get the maximum out of herself. But yeah, great week. And what can you say? You can hang your hat on. We beat Rachel Homan at the Olympic trials. It's a story you can tell your grandkids. Then we have 2 teams at 1-6, not the week that either would have wanted. Team Cameron and Team Brown. Team Brown really never having a close game over the course of the week. They won against Kayla Skurlik. Other than that, weren't in too many games. Team Cameron only beat Team Brown. And they got kind of annihilated by Rachel Homan in the first game of the event, and it kind of felt like that told the story. So yeah, maybe we can lump them together. They both went 1-6. Give me some quick thoughts here on Kate Cameron and Corinne Brown.
Yeah, it's just, sorry, that came, I'm trying to think. It just
Don't
wasn't
hurt
a great
yourself.
week. It wasn't a great week for either team, like just being honest. I think both were capable of certainly better, but that's curling and it's the trials. If you're not at the top of your game, you're probably going to have a 1-6 record. I love Kate Cameron. I love watching Kate Cameron. I always have. She's a beauty. Just a fun person to watch. I personally just have always been a big fan of Kate, and it'd be interesting to see where she goes if she decides to keep skipping or not. I don't think that lineup she has is the lineup that's going to get her if she still wants to try and get to that top level. And the same for Team Brown, but Corinne was in Charlottetown a couple summers ago, and I had a great chat with her. And I think, she just got married. She has a young child as well. And, I think she's just in a different season of life. It just felt like both teams didn't really seem like they were there and hungry to win, if that makes sense. They were kind of trying their best, but it just wasn't the week for them. I mean, 1-6.
Yeah. No, the results speak for themselves. I mean, Corinne had that great run at the points bet. Maybe maybe a case of peaking a little bit too early, but made the finals of the points bet against a lot of the teams that were in this field. And yeah, just couldn't put it together this week. I think they're a good team, but I think you're right. They're a team that they don't push it as far as they could. They don't play as many events as a lot of similar teams their age do. And Corinne, Aaron, and Sam have been playing together for so long. Do they finally change it up? I don't know. I mean, I know they're best friends, and maybe they just don't want to, and that's totally fine too. They're a very good team. They win a lot of games. Sometimes it's just, I play with my best friends and it's great, and this is where we're at. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. And then, for Kate, I just felt a little bad, Brienne coming back into the mix at third. I'm sure she would have loved to have a bit better of a performance at the trials, just to, I mean, her teams, I didn't see enough of their games to know how well she individually played, but I just mean their team in general. I'm sure she would have loved to, as a way of getting back into the mix, be on a team that was competitive. But yeah, like you said, this Kate Cameron mix, not quite there. And similar, they play a lot, but they stick mostly in Manitoba, and they're, I think for both of these teams, they're at a sort of crossroads where they're in their early 30s or just turning 30. And it's just that time to decide, like, do I want to go really hard next quad and fix this 1-6 result, or am I just kind of happy being where I'm at? And so we'll see how that all shakes out. But not a great week for either of those teams, unfortunately. But there you have it. Team Jacobs, Team Homan, off to the Olympic trials. Obviously, we are going to have way more coverage of the Olympics for you. We are going to have an interview later this week with someone. I can't say who yet, but someone who had a good week at the trials. I'll tell you that for free. But this will likely be a 2-episode week once we kind of try and nail that down. Then Robbie and I will be back next week to preview the Hearing Life Canadian Open coming up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the last big event on the curling calendar before the holiday season. And just before we wrap this up, Robbie, would be remiss not to have a quick word about Colleen Jones, legend of the sport. Obviously, you knew her well, being from Atlantic, Canada. Really tough loss for the curling community this week. I think for some curling fans, a surprising loss as well. I think both you and I were aware of her health situation, but a lot of the fans were not. Colleen Jones passing this week at the age of 65. A few words on Colleen from you.
Colleen was just one of those people with a presence. Everywhere she goes, you knew she was there before she walked in a room. She was just that ray of light that everybody needed, and she always seemed to be there at the right time when they needed it. She was a warrior on the ice. She was a beauty off the ice. I did a year in Halifax University, and I hung around with Luke quite a bit, and so we spent quite a bit of time at their house, and we had some great chats. She truly loved the sport. She loved her family. She loved Nova Scotia. Colleen Jones was exactly what you'd think. And Scott, Zach, and Luke, thinking about you guys a lot.
Yeah, I thought one thing that was really special, not that, you don't ever want anyone to pass away, but the timing actually felt really nice. Yeah. That there was a big curling event in Halifax. Her daughter-in-law was in the finals. Her sons, her family was able to be there at the event, and she was able to maybe receive her flowers in a way that she may not have had she passed away in the summer, or something like that. She passes away in June or July, and then by the time the curling season rolls around, things get lost in the shuffle. It really felt like it was really beautiful that she was able to get the whole curling world thinking of her and paying attention to her, because she deserved it. Totally a wonderful person. And I don't know Colleen super well, but I will say a couple things. First of all, she was invited to the All-Star game in Nashville, was very sick. I didn't know that. I didn't find out that she was sick until we were actually in Nashville. And then people kind of said, like, you know, this is a lot. This is a lot for her to be here. But you wouldn't have known it. You know, we had an absolute blast with her on the ice. I went cowboy hat shopping with her, all of that. Like, it was just, I don't know what she was dealing with. I don't know the pain she was in, but I can only imagine it was a lot. But she wanted to do one more thing, you know, have that one more, got to go to the Brier with her son's team, then got to go to the All-Star game in Nashville. She got those like last big moments, and that was really special. The other thing that stands out to me is, you know, I think as a person who works in media, you build up these like weird things in your head. And Devin and Colleen had that curling show for a number of years. And I was always trying to break into the curling media world and podcasting, and started to get into commentating and stuff. And you like invent this stuff in your head where I'm like, oh, they're, you know, we have some kind of like rivalry or something, you know, it didn't exist. I'm not, that's just, you think in your head, you're like, oh, they're doing what I wish I was doing. And there's like a little bit of professional jealousy there. And the show was so fun and good. And, you know, and they never asked me to be a guest. And, you know, it's just like I build up all these things in my head. It makes no sense. And I had never met Colleen or Devin at that time. And then I did the media day at the Scotties in 2023 when it was in Calgary, and I've never met Colleen before, and she's there. She was coaching Team Black, I think, or working with them or whatever. She was in the building, and I was just like, I was kind of, or no, maybe it was the points bet. I don't remember. I think it was the points bet, actually. She was there with Owen and her son. And again, I've never met her, and I've built up this thing in my head, and she just goes, she sees me. I've never met her before. And she goes, she runs over. Oh my God, John, I loved Broomgate. Oh, it was so good. I listened to every episode in a row. I couldn't get enough of it. It was amazing. And like, immediately I'm like, what was I even thinking? You know, it was just like the whole time she was just a lovely, beautiful person. And I'm just like, you know, anyway, so I just thought that was really cool. She could have easily had a similar feeling back to me of, you know, oh, we're two professionals in the same space. Maybe there's a bit of internal competitiveness, whatever, but it was just, she was immediately like, I loved it. And what you did was so great and blah, blah. I'm a huge fan. And I was just like, wow, you know, really, really cool. So anyway, Colleen, very, very special person, huge figure in the game. And as you said, we send all the best to her family and those closest to her as they maneuver through this difficult time. And we'll miss you, Colleen. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode. If you want to see a video of this episode, it's available on YouTube. You can follow us on everything at the Broom Brothers. And we'll see you back here very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.